Hello, my name's Alistair, and I'm a professional C# developer. Professional means that it's my job. So it doesn't mean I'm good at it, it just means that's what I do for a profession. And today we're going to start a crash course in C#, the language. And we're going to go into this assuming that you have no prior experience with development or very little experience with development. If you have done coding before, but in another language, there are going to be sections you can skip. But yes, so this is going to be really, really basic. I'm going to go through things several times as we move moves through the course, and I will try to explain everything as thorough as possible, while also keeping it to being valuable information. So we're going to do it quick and efficient, but hopefully so you can follow. And we're going to start out with data types, because we need data. C# has 3 different data types. It has value data types, reference data types, and pointer data types. We're going to start with value data types, and that is for variables. Now, what is a variable? Well, quite simple. It's a way to store data and keep data throughout your program. So, not that scary. What I've done is I've started Visual Studio and I've created an empty console app. I would recommend that you do the same, because it's an easy way to just get your fingers in there and start doing some code. You can do it in Visual Studio Code, that's no problem, or whatever other IDE you want to use, as long as it can compile C code. There are tons of guides out there for setting up environments. We're doing a console app here, and I'm doing it in .NET 8. Yes, C# 8. Yes, so that doesn't really matter either. It's just a little bit about syntax. So let's get into variables and data types. So we need to declare a variable, and we need to give it a type. So I'm going to start out with int, call it my int, and give it a value of 0. Now, int, that's the data type, and that means integer. My int is the name that I've decided to give it. It could be banana, doesn't matter, but variable names should be something that makes sense. So my int, and let's give it a value of 1. So we have our first variable. Next, we have something called a double. Let's call it my double. And that is simply a decimal value, so 1.5. So int is for whole numbers, double is for decimal values. We also have something called float, my float, and that's the same thing as a double. There we go. That's the same thing as a double, only only it takes less bytes, so it can store 6 to 7 decimal digits. If you need something bigger than that, you will use a double that uses 8 bytes and can store up to 15 decimal digits. This is not really important right now, but for performance and similar, it does matter. But let's get rid of the float for now. And the main difference between declaring the value is that if it's a float, we add a little f. We're going to dive into that later. So, rid of that. Then we have something called a boolean, or in this case, bool. Now, bool is simple. It can have 2 values. It can be true, or it can be false. It is quite usable for if we need to know the condition of something. So if we have a record, we can do a variable saying we have the record and it's true. I will go into examples about this later on as well, so don't worry if it doesn't make that much sense right now. Then we need to talk about a really important one called string, myString. Now string is strings, it's text, so that can be A, B, C, D, and so on. It's a way to store a text. Similarly, we also have something called char, myChar, and char is a way to store a single character, like D. It is usable when manipulating strings and stuff like that. We will talk about that later as well. But the main point here is that we declare a type, we give it a name, and we assign a value. It's that simple. Later on, we can manipulate that value, but let's start by just simply getting something out into the console. So right now, if I start the program, it will build slowly. And as you can see, we have our hello world. I should maybe explain that. We have this command. Command is a method built into .NET, where we say console write line, and then we give it something called a parameter. We're going to delve into that as well later. But right now, this is what results in this being printed out. Now let's say we wanted to say something else than hello world. Now we could quite simply write something else here. Go hello mom. But let's try to use a variable instead. So I'm going to get rid of these, because we're going to use that later. And we're going to do a string called message to console. There are a lot of rules about variable names, how you're supposed to write them so they're as readable as possible. I do this. The first letter is always lowercase, and every following word is uppercase. And then we're going to write hello nice viewer, because I assume you're a nice viewer. Something else. You can see this little red stipple line is complaining because it needs a semicolon. This is how we end a line. And that's something that the compiler needs to know. So every time we do this, we also need to end it with a semicolon, or it will not build. You can see in the console that we have a syntax error. It's expecting a semicolon. So we add that, and it's happy again. And as a parameter for this method, we can now pass our new variable. That is a string. That's named message to console. And let's try to run this. And now it says hello nice viewer. Nifty, right? So we can manipulate a string. Let's say that we wanted to add something more to it. So we can go message to console and set it to be equal to itself plus some more text. Now we have manipulated our variable to contain some more text. And we use plus to say that we want to add something to it. Now we can say minus and it will remove because it's a string. Now that will give us an error, but we can do this. We will go into string manipulation and stuff like that later, so don't worry, just follow along. We're going to repeat the same thing several times, so it will start to make sense fairly quickly. And now we have hello, nice viewer, some more text. Easy, right? So let's cut it off for now. I hope this made sense to you, please ask questions in the comments. I will try to answer to the best of my abilities. And I will see you soon for another video.